Please welcome Mr. Anirban.
Good evening, everyone. I was actually about to start with the whole I said roll call, but since Shavinder's already done that, I'm not going to try and repeat myself. It's good to be here in an ISEC forum once again. It's been 13 years since I left ISEC. I'm not speaking about the topic that they initially asked me to. They asked me to speak about entrepreneurship in 21st century India. And I said, considering the board of directors that you have, I think I'm spectacularly underqualified to speak about entrepreneurship in 21st century India in the presence of people like Ronnie Screwvala or Shavinder. So I think someone else should speak about it. So then they said that why don't you speak about your own personal life experience and the role that ISEC played in it, which is something that I feel a lot more comfortable talking about. Before I talk a little bit about what I do, I think it makes sense to tell you a little bit about where I come from and who I am. Because I think I work in the entertainment space, as some of you know. But my background or where I come from is very different from most people in the entertainment space. I come from a very small town in the northeast called Shillong, from a middle-class family with parents who work in State Bank of India, with absolutely zero background in entrepreneurship. We grew up not speaking Hindi. Growing up in Shillong, Hindi is not really a part of your cultural experience growing up. Not watching Hindi movies. And in an environment where it's not just my parents' immediate family, if I look at my entire social universe that I operated in, parents, relatives, friends, friends' parents, I don't think there was anyone with an entrepreneurial background growing up. And I think entrepreneurship was something that was really not part of our mental mindscape in any capacity. I don't think that I'm sort of I'm an entrepreneur in a very meaningful sense yet. But today I think the journey that I've gone through, and I think that ISEC was really the pivotal experience in my life that led me on this journey, has led me to a situation where today I live in Bombay, I'm 33 years old. I have a bunch of different businesses. There's Kwan, which is the largest sort of celebrity entertainment marketing firm in India. There's an agency in the south, which is the only agency of its kind called Artist Alliance. There's Elite, which is the biggest modeling agency in the country. There's an ad film business called Off-Road, which I invested in with an alumnus called Khalid Bachwali, who was actually NCP about 10, 11 years ago. So I helped Khalid start an ad film business about a year and a half ago. There is, there's my partner Madhu Mandena. I helped him start a boutique production house called Phantom about 8 months ago. I mean, Ronnie knows about it. With Vikas there, Anurag Kashyap and Vikramaditya Motwani. So it's really a bunch of different businesses in this space. There's also a small stake that we have in a company called Savan, which is the fastest growing mobile application in India for listening to legitimate Bollywood music on the internet. So it's strange because for a guy who's grown up in a place like Shillong, in a very, very middle class background, not even understanding Hindi, to be in a space where, 13 years later he's here working across all of these businesses, it's not really a life journey that is expected, and I don't think it's a life journey that I honestly expected to be embarking on in any capacity. And strangely enough, I think when I look back my life and I remember going into college, the other interesting bit is that I also actually never studied business, and it's really strange to sit on the board of a company or to work as an investor in many different businesses, because I entered university and before I got to ISEC, unlike most of you, I didn't join ISEC my first year in college because I was not really interested in the business world. My interests were more creative. I studied English literature in Delhi University. And I saw, at best, if I looked at the corporate world, maybe a career in advertising, writing copy. I didn't really see myself working in business in any capacity. And ISEC really, in some senses, was where I started learning and being exposed to business in the first place. My journey in ISEC, interesting enough, began with an interview in the old Ranbaxy office, which was the ISEC Delhi University office. And it started out selling brochures, which had a quote from Mr. Deepak Parekh. So it's strange, in some senses, it's a bit of a circle to come back and be here today. But I joined ISEC like a lot of the people because it seemed like a fun place and because I was interested in the development side of things, and they had a program back then called Wider, which I thought was interesting. I went through, I think, a lot of the things that makes ISEC very unique. I went through, I think, Shri spoke about this a little while ago, but I think the kind of exposure that you get at a really young age is so spectacular. You get exposed to leadership, you get exposed to motivation, you get exposed to different brands, you get exposed to how to lead and guide and inspire people. But I think more than all of that, it was, I think, certain life learnings that I experienced when I was in ISEC that have, I think, really stayed on with me throughout my life. There's a lot of alumni from ISEC in Kwan. I think about 10% of our workforce is ex-ISEC. And there's someone here called Avjit Sundar, who's this brilliant stand-up comic, who was a recent alumnus. And he likes to, so we make him do a stand-up comedy act at all our conferences. And he sort of mimics, the management at Kwan. And one of the things that he mimicked was my sort of key motto, which is that leadership is not a popularity contest, which is, I think, sort of maybe one of the most important things that I believe in terms of life. And it's something that I actually realized at a very, very young age, at the age of 19. And it's something that I've sort of carried with me all my life. So I joined ISEC because it was a really fun place. When a lot of you who've been in ISEC know that it's not hard to be popular in ISEC. And I think I started out, and I got into the executive board after a few months as sort of the most popular guy in the LC. And that is, I think, what I really thrived on. That is what my space was. I enjoyed being the center of attention. I enjoyed being popular. I went out for every party, the last guy to leave the party. But when I got onto the executive board, I think I sort of, at some level, forgot that when you're in a position of responsibility or leadership, it's not really about being popular anymore, and that popularity disappears very quickly. And I went from being the most popular guy in the LC to being the single most disrespected loser on my executive board in the span of about 90 days, which at the age of 19 can, I think, be a huge reality check, and it can be an experience that shakes you up a little bit. So I remember when all of the new recruits joined, and we had to sit and present all of our, after NLAs, we had to sit and present all what every department does, so that they could decide what department they would join. And they gave their preferences before and after the sessions. And I remember that before I began our sessions, of the 30 new recruits, I think I had one first preference out of all the 30 new recruits. There was only one new recruit who, after a month and a half in ISEC, wanted to sit and work with me as a first preference. I went to that session, and I remember sitting and telling them that, I can't, unlike everyone else in my executive body, I can't tell you what I have done before you joined ISEC, because I have done nothing. I can't tell you what I am going to do and what my plans are, because I don't think my plans are as finely tuned as a lot of the other people around. But what I do know is that I feel I have learned something over the last 3 months. I feel that what I've done is sort of wasted my time and everyone else's time around me. I know that what I do want to do with the rest of my time is that I want to do things differently. I have some thoughts. These are some of my thoughts. But on the whole, I want to go out there on an everyday basis, approach my day and approach my week saying, what can we do better? How do I approach it with a certain amount of honesty and with a certain amount of desire to make a difference? I can't promise to do anything dramatic or radical or make a huge impact, but I know that I will approach this with 100% dedication and 100% sincerity, and that's all that, if anyone wants to work with me, that's all that I can promise you, that we will go on this journey together and we will give it our best, and that is all that I can promise you. That day, at the end of the sessions, I ended up having 23 first preferences, and I got to sort of pick the best people in the LC to sit and work with me in my department. And I think at a very young age, I realized that popularity is very easy, and popularity is very cheap. I find a lot of people who are in positions of entrepreneurship or in positions of leadership are afraid of sort of talking and communicating with honesty to the people that they work with, to their clients, to everyone around them. I find that people shy away from taking tough decisions, whether it is to hire the right people or to fire the right people, to tell the truth to someone who is a prospective customer. In India, you always have this thing, sir, don't worry, you will get it next week. When it's not going to happen next week, and you know when you're making that statement, it's not going to happen next week. So there's a lack of honesty that we see in an Indian business environment Because everyone, I think, is always afraid of the truth and afraid of being perceived as unpopular at some level. And I think the single most important lesson that I learned in ISEC, because it's an organization where you're surrounded by people with whom you have to prove that you have the right to be in a position of leadership. They're your age, they're all as bright as you. They've chosen to put you in that position where you're leading your peers, and for that you need to earn their respect through the work that you do, and not just being a popular person who's the center of attention or who's a lot of fun. And that's a lesson that I think has been sort of that has stayed with me all my life. In terms of being able to handle different situations, a lot of the people that we work with, films, as again Ronnie will tell you, are a very high stress, high crisis sort of industry. Things go wrong on a consistent basis. Someone will sit and promise that they can deliver a film in 10 crores, and after 1 month of shooting, you suddenly realize that the budget has doubled. Or there's a celebrity who is supposed to come for for an endorsement shoot in South Africa, which involves a 2 crore investment, and suddenly will miss the flight because he was out partying the previous night. Things like this happen, and so I tend to sort of handle these things with a certain amount of calmness, and but it's again because at a very young age you've been exposed to situations that I think are in some ways more challenging than anything I've faced in the business world. If I were to look back in my entire life and I look at from a logistics, practical perspective, what is the single biggest challenging situation that I've faced? It was actually when I was in ISEC in Delhi University. We were organizing what at that point in time was the biggest conference that had happened in ISEC in India. It was a conference that we were doing in Jim Corbett with about 600 people. It was NLDS plus the executive boards plus a lot of international delegates. And I was the EB executive in charge of it. We were in Jim Corbett National Park. It was 7:30 in the evening. The next morning, everyone leaves Delhi. We have 400 kids from across the country, about 17 years old. Their parents have no clue what ISEC is. They've landed up in Delhi, and the next morning they're about to get into a bus and go for some conference in Jim Corbett. And at 7:30, we're suitably happy because we're all ready. We go out and we get drunk in this village called Ramnagar. We get back, and we're told at 10 at night that there's a politician called Dumpy Ahmed who needs the venue. You no longer have a venue. And the conference, everyone arrives the next evening. And we're 19 and 20 years old, and there's 8 of us. We had 24 hours to put together a conference in a completely new city in Nainital. And it was ridiculous because it was 6 o'clock in the evening when we finally got it together. We asked everyone, leave Delhi and head towards Nainital. By the time you're here, we'll figure it out. And to sit and make calls back in the pre-cell phone days to people. Someone sitting in Chennai, trying to explain to your mother, I thought you were going to Jim Corbett, what are you doing in Nainital? And then to take those calls. I think that I have never, at such a young age, encountered a situation like that. I think that, and to be able to deal with situations like that, I think that when you step into the real world, a lot of things that you learn in business of course the stakes are much higher, but the emotions are not very different, and I think that at a young age, we are able to deal with situations like that. I think it's something that will hold you in good stead all your life. What are the sort of other entrepreneurial lessons that I've learned, that I applied today at Kwan and that I learned through ISEC? ISECers tend to be very, very questioning. I mean, you stand for an ISEC election and everyone questions you on everything that you say. I think that is one of the hallmarks of entrepreneurship. I'll give my experience. How did a guy from a place like Shillong end up coming and working in this business? I remember sitting, of course, you've got to be able to take risks. I started with a guy called Mahesh Bhupati, who was starting a company called Global Sport. And I joined them initially in a marketing capacity. I said, let me start the talent business. I started with sports. And I told Mahesh, let's move into Bollywood. I remember coming to Bombay. We lived in Bangalore back then. And coming and meeting Saif Ali Khan in his house. And he met me in a towel. And I remember thinking that this is very different from the world that I'm coming from. And I said that I'd like you to sign with us. And he says, why would I sign with you? I said, and we spoke about endorsements. And he spoke about how he's already doing endorsements. And then we spoke about how at the end of the day, the current system that existed in the country was about, oh, I know you, why don't you let me handle your work? You either have a personal secretary or you have someone who's sort of familiar with, this whole Bollywood environment, and he handles your work. So explain to him that, if that secretary or that person doesn't really understand what Pepsi's strategic needs are, and explain to the VP marketing at Coke, I should say Coke because of the audience that's over here. Sorry, considering we work together, I should definitely say Coke. Talk to the VP marketing of at Coca-Cola about how Saif Ali Khan fits into your strategic needs. That's not a conversation that a film secretary sitting in Bombay can have. So the idea really, the point I'm trying to make was that you sat and you identified a gap and you were able to sit and communicate that gap to someone, and that's how the entrepreneurship opportunity arose. And in everything that we've ever done, I think that has really been the thing. As outsiders to Bollywood, the reason why we've really risen is because we've been able to identify gaps, and I think that is what every great entrepreneur does. In this room, you have someone like Ronnie Screwvala. When he started out and when he started UTV, we lived in an environment where a producer meant someone like Bonnie Kapoor, which was an individual who was related to someone in the industry or who had grown up in the industry. The idea of someone coming and building a corporate organization and building a professional organization and going out there and producing films was path-breaking. So whether it's Ronnie Screwvala, whether it's Steve Jobs, whoever it is, every successful entrepreneur questions the assumptions that are taken as perceived wisdom and perceived truth. If you're unable to ask questions and challenge perceived wisdom, you will never be a successful entrepreneur. Since there's a lot of young people here, I also want to talk a little bit about how you approach a career as an entrepreneur. I had a fairly safe career. I used to work with Ericsson in Sweden handling in telecoms marketing. I think at about 23, I would earn like most international salaries, you earn a very good salary. I came back to India because I wanted to take a decision about whether I want to live in Europe and India. My wife was also from ISEC, lived in Bangalore, and I felt that this long distance relationship was a bit challenging. So when I moved to Bangalore, when we started Global Sport, I started on a salary of 17,000 rupees. For someone who'd been sitting and working with Ericsson in Stockholm and comes from a middle class family, and all of my friends, and the idea was, okay, I'll sit and do this for a little while, and then after that maybe I'll go and apply to a Big 5 business school and sit and get an MBA. But I'd seen Jerry Maguire when I was in university, and I thought that was an interesting job. And when I met Mahesh Bhupati and he was starting this company, I thought that would be something interesting that I would try and do. And although the money was not meaningful, I know that it was a bit challenging when you're 23 years old, you're used to earning a certain level, and suddenly you're not sure if you should go to coffee. It becomes a bit challenging, especially when all of your friends earn so much more. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be able to take risks. The way I saw it is that if I didn't do it then, I would only do it 15 years later. So if you either take risks when you're really young or when you're really safe. No one takes risks in the middle of their lives and careers. You have to set in your ways. So we took that sort of risk, and the way I always built my career, and I think that's the advice I would give anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, is decide the industry that you want to be in, and then forget about the salary, forget about the designation. You have to approach it with a long-term horizon. You have to look at it from a 7, 8, 9, 10-year horizon and say, if this is the industry I want to be in, there are 3 things that you need. I need to build the right knowledge, I need to build the right skill sets, and I need to build the right networks and contacts. If you're able to do that, the money that you will make when you are successful is far greater than chasing the highest paycheck. Some of you know about this last year when Randa was there from Passat. But we started in Global Sport at 17,000. And after some time, when Global Sport started doing well, the larger firms started pursuing me, saying, why don't you come across to us? And so Passat I think is a good example, because the first time Passat offered me a job was when I was 25 years old, and I was on about 30,000, and they offered me, or 40,000, and they offered me $1 lakh a month. Over time, over the course of 3 or 4 years, the offers went from $1 lakh a month to 2 lakhs a month. It went eventually to 1 crore a year, and then it eventually went to starting a company together as a joint venture when I was leaving and starting Kwan as a 50-50 JV. But at every point in time, I said no. And a lot of people might not understand at a young age, why would you, when you're working on a 30, 40,000 salary, why would you say no to a salary that was 3, 4 times higher? Or when I remember IMG was looking for a new managing director at some stage, they said that, oh, would you like to join IMG? Again, significantly higher than Globosport, because Globosport was a company that we had built on our own, it wasn't a rich company. When the IPL happened, the Rajasthan Royals wanted me to play a role over there. But I just felt that if I looked at all of those opportunities, why I said no to IMG was that yes, it was a great brand, it was it was a great salary. If I look at the Rajasthan Royals, I think that again is something really interesting from a wealth creation perspective. But I felt that they were limited. I think to work with IMG meant working with fashion events and sports events. Whereas I felt that working with Globosport allowed me a platform to really grow and learn and do so much more than working with something with such a limited mandate. Working with the Rajasthan Royals would have meant working in cricket and leaving the entire world of entertainment. And I think that you have, so these are the inflection points in anyone's life where you can choose to pursue the safe option for the higher paycheck, or you can choose to sit and say that this is where I want to be for myself and let me create the largest platform possible. So the advice that I would give you guys is always go out there and try and build a platform. Don't worry about your salary or any such thing. If you're in an environment where you're growing and you're learning and you're in a supportive, nourishing environment, that is far more valuable than how much you take home every month. You're all bright people. You will never starve. You will never be short of money. So don't think from a short-term monetary perspective. You have a long life ahead of you. And really, if you're as good as you think you are, money will never be a problem in the long term. Few other, just to close, just a few more things. One of the, I think, defining traits about entrepreneurs is that they are positive people. They're not cribbers. I've seen this with a lot of people. I think the natural inclination a lot of people have in the professional environment is to complain about the things that have gone wrong, about your boss, about finance, about HR, about processes, etc. When we started Globosport, so there were 4 people who started Globosport. I was the youngest of the 4, and my role was to handle marketing, make the PowerPoint presentations for sports events. So there were 3 co-founders. The owner was Mahesh Bhupathi. The other 3 spent all of their time talking about how the company was underfunded, how there was not enough investment, how there was this, how there was that. I was 24, the others were much older. At some point in time, I went and told Mahesh that, there's more we can do, why don't we start managing a talent business? I signed some sort of domestic cricketers like Akash Chopra and Avishka Salvi. I went and signed a junior tennis player called Sania Mirza, who eventually became much bigger. But the idea really was, instead of complaining about the environment, how do you go out there and seek out opportunities and seek to add value in what you're doing. Eventually, we got into a situation where 2-3 years later, we sacked that initial founding team, and at the age of 26, I started running the company. But I think the only reason that happened was because in an environment where everyone sat and complained about what was going wrong, there was only one person who was trying to say, what can we do with the limited resources you have? Because that was in a professional environment. But the truth is, when you're an entrepreneur, you will always work in an environment with limited resources. You may not have reach, you may not have infrastructure, you may not have money. There will always be challenges and limitations when you're an entrepreneur. It is the attitude and your ability to make the most with limited resources that will make the difference between winning and losing. Last 2 topics, focus on people. A lot of people keep asking me whether it's been difficult for someone like me with my background to be in Bollywood. No, it's not been. I think it's been fantastic. People have been extraordinarily kind and warm to me. I've had, doors have opened easily. People have, business has come easily. It has never been challenging. But I think that part of the reason why that's happened is because I've always viewed life and work as being really about 2 things. When you sit and work with people, you have to have empathy. You have to see things from the other person's point of view, and you have to see how can you add value to their lives. Whether this is a client, whether this is an employee, whether this is whoever it is that you work with, if you have empathy and you're able to see things from another person's point of view, and you're good at your work, there will always be opportunity. So whether it is sitting and so today I think the way we tend to approach our work, so we work in different areas. We work in endorsements, we work in putting together films. But the idea is when you go to an actor, or you go, today if I sit and go to a Deepika Padukone, for example, and I sit and say, what is it that you want to do? You're a successful movie star, where do you want to be? And what is the role that we can play in that process? That is the conversation that we have. If I work with an Abhijit Sundar, who joined the company 7-8 months ago, The conversation that we have with the Navjeet Sundar is not, okay, listen, this is what you did in ISEC, therefore this is what you will do in Quan. The idea is to sit and say, okay, where do you want to go? And what can we as an organization do in terms of creating a platform to help you grow? Because I really believe, again, see, I'm not sort of someone who sort of had a conventional business education. For me, it's really always been about sort of common sense and learning things on my own. And I feel that one of the things that I've always learned is that if you put yourself in another person's shoes and you treat them the way you would like to be treated, you will always be successful. I do not want to make the mistakes that I think the bad bosses that I have had, when I look at the things that they've done and the things that they've done wrong, I know I don't want to make those same mistakes. I have been a client, I have been a consumer, I have been in those situations, and I know that I don't want to repeat those same mistakes. And I think that if I look at the mistakes that people make, the commonality across all of those mistakes is a lack of empathy and an inability to put yourself and see it from another person's perspective. And I think that if you're able to treat everyone that you work with a certain amount of respect and with a certain amount of empathy, you will be successful in whatever you do. Final thing I sort of want to talk about is you've got to, if you're in a position where you're successful, whether as an entrepreneur, whether as a professional, you have to give back. It's one of the things that I always found very special about ISEC, the fact that it had a purpose that went beyond just being successful and having a good time. We started, one of the things, when I started Quan, people said that, okay, I started a charitable foundation immediately. And people said, as a startup, you shouldn't do this, you should do this later once you get successful. But I don't really think so here. So, we do a bunch of different things. And for me, it's a very important part of what we do at Quan. The first thing we do is we work with an NGO called the Akshar Foundation, where we've created a program to take women from underprivileged backgrounds and educate them and ensure that instead of getting married at the age of 13 or 14, they complete their education and are part of the workforce. So it started with 100 women in the first year that we're sort of doing scaling up, and we use different celebrity activities to raise funds for them or to raise awareness for them. The second thing that we do is we're putting together a website called Keto with an actor called Kunal Kapoor and a bunch of ex-Google guys, which is sort of a micro-giving platform where if you want to contribute to an NGO working with child welfare in Ranchi, there is a list of NGOs where you know that this is validated, they're actually doing work that is legitimate, and where you can track what your contribution is going towards. That's the second thing we do. And the third thing that we do is we work with different celebrities to sit and say that, okay, this is an issue I'm passionate about, how do I go out there and engage with it? Now, this is not something that is a part of the core of the business of Quan. But I feel that this is a part of what the organization is about, because I think people would like to feel that they're a part of something larger, where it's not really a transactional relationship. And I feel that at the end of the day, we're in a very, very privileged position. All of you here are in a very privileged position. I remember a presentation that was made to me 10, 11 years ago when I was in ISEC, at an ISEC conference, that said only 1% of the world's population has a university education. 1%. Everyone in this room is part of a very, very privileged part of the world and society. And if you people are not going to make a change, and if you people are not going to try and make a difference, I don't think however much money you make, however successful you are, however recognized you are, when you go back and when, at some point in time, when you look back at your contribution in the world, it will not be truly meaningful if you don't have a sense of higher purpose beyond just what you do in the professional environment. So that's the last thing I'd like to say to you. Whatever you guys choose to do in life, as entrepreneurs, as professionals, whatever it is you guys are, make sure you guys give back, because if you guys don't, no one else will. If you're leaders, lead by example. Thank you.